What's up, everyone? It's Oliver Hoskins here, former now London Irish player. So originally this was going to be part two of my sort of dipping the toes into the podcasting world. And I think I'm probably going to flip that. Just going to push the brakes a little bit on the part one that I put out on Twitter before, mainly around just making sure I'm not pissing anybody off and saying things I shouldn't be saying, because it's quite an emotional topic. And my wife very astutely told me to maybe get some stuff checked off in there before I post it to the masses in case I say something I shouldn't have, which is fair enough because I am looking for employment, so I don't want to jeopardize that with anything I say. But hopefully everything that gets ticked off, and that will be out probably after this one now, even though this is part two and that one's part one. It's, so when that comes out, if you hear me talking about part one and this, it's just, apologies. It's just been a little bit of a logistical mess around, just getting some stuff ticked off. So this pod coming in right now, I'm just going to get to a bunch of the questions that I put out onto Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn, and address hopefully some good memories and stuff about my career over the last 7 years at London Irish. And yeah, hopefully we can have a bit of a laugh and a bit of smile and get some good memories out the way first, and then hopefully everything gets ticked off for the other one and I can put that one out to the masses and give you guys a bit more of an insight into what happened over the last month or so. So I won't directly be addressing that in this pod. This will be more about the questions around my time at Irish and my career and all that sort of stuff. A bit more of a positive light. And yeah, got a big response, much bigger than I thought I was going to receive. I got almost 200 questions, I think, all up. So obviously I'm not going to sit here and get into all 200. I've kind of collated the general sort of FAQs, I guess, of what was said. I'm not going to get to every single question, obviously, but I kind of collated a bunch of similar ones, the ones that were most asked, and I'm going to do my best to answer that, and hopefully it's insightful and gives you guys a bit of a trip down memory lane a little bit with me, and hopefully get a little bit of a closure and a bit of a smile going throughout this very dark time, I guess. Yeah, so I'm just going to get straight into it. Hopefully it's not going to get too long, and yeah, thank you for the response. It was very nice to see everyone be so supportive of this idea. Okay, so the first question I got is, this got asked, easily the most sort of asked question was my favourite game or most memorable game for Irish, or sort of my fondest moment. And it was asked by a lot of people, but trying to pinpoint it down to one is very, very difficult. There were so many games this year that were burnt into my memory as being so awesome. I think everyone kind of felt the role that we're on this year, and some of the wins that we got were just like, I think you saw on the TV my emotions towards the end of that if I was on the bench or whatever. But my favourite game for Irish is actually probably I was in my second year. It would have been maybe late 2017 or early 2018, in that sort of 17-18 season. And we just been promoted from the championship, and we were struggling big time in the Prem. Big time struggles. I think we beat Quins that first game of the season in the doubleheader at Twickenham, and we thought like, oh my God, we just won the champ. We just beaten Quins first game. We're going to be rolling. Then I don't think we won another game in the Premiership till much later in the year. But this was a European game. We went away to Paris and played Stade Francais, and we kind of left a bunch of the boys who'd been starting in the Premiership at home because we were in the Challenge Cup, and I was kind of second, third string tight of that. I played a few Prem games. I was out of the team initially at the start of the year. I'd come off the bench a few times. I never started a Prem game or anything before. And I started this game we played against Stade Francais away in Paris. And we took a lot of boys who hadn't played a lot of rugby that year. Were kind of in and out of the Premiership team. And we went away to Stade Francais having not won for a while. And I think it was Topsy was breaking his record for the most games ever at London Irish, like 260 odd, something ludicrous. And we went over to Stade Francais and we put 40 points on them. out of nowhere. Just like the young boys and guys who hadn't played a lot. And we went to Stade Francais, and I remember like I think we scored within the first couple of minutes. I remember not to toot my own horn. I took a ball off the 9 and kind of broke the first line, and then the last defender came over and offloaded to Gilly, and Connor Gilson scored. I think we'd already scored 1 or 2 before then, and then within like the first sort of 20 minutes, we're up by like 3 tries or whatever, and all of us are looking at each other like, wow, this is what's going on. And then I remember Topsy scoring. I think he scored 1 or 2. I can't remember how many, but Topsy definitely scored. And I just remember, I think the front row was Harry Elrington, Tom Wollstonecroft, and me. Baz is at Gloucester and Wolfie's at Sarries now. And we were like young front row, and I remember I was scrumming against this Georgian bloke. Harry was against Paul Allo-Emile, and I can't remember who was at hooker, some massive, and we were like getting melted at scrum time. We were literally balls in, ball out as quick as we could. But everything around the park was just like going so well. And I remember it was one of my first sort of, because obviously I came over and played in the championship, then I kind of come off the bench a few times in the Prem once we got promoted, but I was like in and out of the team. I was probably realistically third choice, and I remember someone got injured and I got a couple of games off the bench in the Prem, and this was like my first sort of real experience of European rugby, where I was away in Paris. This like super cool fans were going nuts, all the horns in France, and we were just like a team of guys who were just like waiting for their opportunity. And I remember we went over to Stade Francais and we just like kicked their ass, and it was such a memorable game, and I'll never forget that. It was so fun. And then afterwards, we got into this like this like VIP nightclub sort of thing in Paris, like wild night afterwards. I remember something like, I'll never forget the prices of the drinks there. Like you'd buy one like sort of vodka lime soda, and it was something like €22 for a drink, and it was just like one of those nightclubs in Paris where we probably definitely did deserve to be in, but we just beat Stade Francais. Well, let's go, and we had a wild night. And then that trip back the next day, getting on the Eurostar. I think there was like some marathon or bike race or something in Paris, and the bus took ages to get there. Everyone was still drunk / hungover, and we missed our first Eurostar back. And we were like delayed, and everyone's struggling. And we managed, AJ, the super manager, as per usual, managed to find us another trip home, and we got back much later than we should have. But that trip back was probably one of the toughest days of my life. I've never been that hungover before. It was horrific. But the day preceding that game was just so memorable and so fun. That's a game one of those games that you will never forget, just because it was like Topsy's really big game for Topsy, and a bunch of the boys who were like kind of on the fringes, were struggling for game time. We just went, and then something clicked, and we just played so well, and it was so fun as well. So yeah, that's definitely my favourite game I've ever played for Irish, I reckon. Definitely, it's what most memorable. There's been so many good games as well, but I'd say that's the one that really, every time I think of just a formative game for me personally and for all the boys who played, that was up there, and it was just a lot of fun. Okay, next question is favourite derby game, and this is from Simon Gooden. Favourite derby game, we've had a few. Like, I've been quite lucky in my, I don't know, you guys would know, since I've been here, like even in the seasons we've been struggling, we've always seemed to do well against Quins and Sarries. There's a few. Similar that 2017 season, there was we beat Quins the first game of the season. I didn't play that game, and then towards the end of the season, I managed to work my way up and was starting in the Premiership. And we played, I think it was like our second or third last game, and we were pretty much dead and buried to be relegated. We played Quins away at the Stoop, and once again, it just clicked. I think we beat them by like 15, 20 points. And that was just like, we hadn't won in so long, and it kept us with like a mathematical chance of staying up. And just to do it at the Stoop against Quins, like I'd only been here for a couple of years, but I already knew sort of the rivalry that was there and the sort of meaning of that game. And yeah, I remember, it's quite funny. I remember playing that game, and there's like a memory specifically in that game that's just etched into my mind. I think we were winning by like 20 points maybe. We're up by quite a bit, and it was pretty obvious that we're going to win, and everything was just going. It was one of those games, everything was just going our way. And I remember Quins knocked the ball on or gave away another penalty. And I remember just standing across from Joe Marler, who was on the other time. And he was just looking at the boys, just yelling like, "What the F are we doing?" to Quins. And it just felt so good to like put them in that mindset. Considering we'd been bad that year. Like we were struggling massively. And just to finally be winning a game at the Stoop against Quins and having like rattled them was a very fun moment. That was one of my favourite derby games. More recently, I think the Saracens game on Christmas Eve, this last season, that was like just a turning point for us. We played really well the week before and we beat Newcastle, and then this Saracens game, like I'd had a bit of an up and down start to the season where I got injured in the last preseason game and injured my big toe, and that was like kind of hindering me quite a lot. I came back probably a bit too early, and I could do everything, but I just couldn't scrum properly off my inside leg because my big toe was just like in bits. And it'd taken me a little bit of a while to find my form after that. So I'd kind of been coming off the bench quite a lot before this, and frustratingly didn't have many starts. And I think this Sarries game was like I think it was only like my second or third start in the Premiership this season, and I was really, really up for it and really excited going into the game. And then it's another one of those games where you could just feel that something good was happening. From the first moment, we just felt like we were on top of them. And I remember we just had so much momentum going in the game, and everything that we were trying was just coming off. We were getting the bounce of the ball. They got on the bad side of the ref because we were kind of like getting in their face, and they were struggling with our momentum a bit. And then obviously they were getting frustrated, and we were getting sort of the rub of the green with the referee, and just the bounce of the ball was going our way. And you could just tell like about 20 minutes into that game, I was like, yeah, this is clicking. This is really clicking. And I think we just played so well, and it was such a fun game to be a part of. When the atmosphere like at Brentford, when we had momentum, and it was around Christmas, and it was just like such a cool. They were undefeated before then, and we really took it to them, and we won that game. Obviously, like everyone remembers TP's ludicrous break to sort of ice that game and to set up Chandler's try. But even before then, we were like, even when they kind of came back into the game a little bit, I remember being under the sticks, or it might have been a half-time under the sticks, but I remember Paddy bringing everybody in and just being like, something went against us. I think they scored against run and play, and Paddy just brought us in and looked at us and was smiling. I was like, boys, like, we are good. Like, we're on here. Don't worry. Let's just go back to what we're doing. Keep doing what we're doing. Like, they're rattled. We're actually killing it. And yeah, it just felt like that. I'd say that's up there with one of my favourite derby games as well. But yeah, that one at the end of 2017 against where we beat Quins when we hadn't won all year. And this one at Christmas, which was a real turning point for us after we put a good performance against Newcastle the week before and got a win after a bunch of really tight losses. And then the Saracens game just like sprung us. We gave them their first loss of the year, and that was just like... And then in the change room, BV stood up and was like, boys, if this doesn't make us believe in ourselves, nothing will. Like, they were undefeated, and we just really took it to them. And that just like springboarded us into that second half of the year where we were probably, I think statistically, we had the most wins out of any team in the second half of the season. So yeah, we were easily one of the best teams in the league for the rest of the year after that game. And that was like a real springboard moment, and it was like such a fun and memorable game to be a part of. Once again, there's footage of me losing my marbles when Chandler scores and TP's making that break and stuff. So you can tell that it meant a little bit to me. Yeah, it was really good. Next up, best team performance that I was a part of from T Jobby. I don't know how to pronounce that. If any Scottish people are around, you know what a jobby is. I don't think. TJOBBE. I'm going to say T Jobby. Best team performance that I was a part of. Ooh, that's a tough one. That is a tough one. I'd say that Saracens one I just spoke of was up there with one of the best team performances that we've been a part of. That I've been a part of. Sorry. But there were so many this year that just like clicked. I think that Sale game later in the season, like the reality of it is that those last like sort of 6-7 games, we were playing knockout rugby every single game because we put ourselves in such a hole to start the season. We had to win every single game pretty much, and we knew that like there was a chance we could lose one or two here. Like we lost that Leicester game, But apart from that, we just won everything. And that Sale game, I'd never beaten Sale before in my entire career. I got like cup, prem, anything. I think I played him, I don't know, God, I've been here 7 years now. Like I've played him 10, 12, I don't know how many times. A lot. And I've never beaten them. We drew with them twice the year before. Like, both our games drew with them. Years before that, we just lost. Every time I'd gone up to Manchester, I'd just been absolutely pumped. And the game earlier in the year, we went up there to the AJ Bell on a Friday, and there's one of the games I didn't get picked for that game because I was having a bit of an up and down start to the season. And fair enough, like I definitely wasn't at my best, and I didn't get picked that game. And I went up as like travelling reserve, and watching, like, we got pretty handily dealt with. Like, physically, they were just smoking us a bit. So this game came about, and like, I'd be lying if I didn't say there was like a little bit of doubt going into even though we were playing so well. It was just this little bit of self-doubt because I've never beaten them before, and every time I played them, it felt like they've just physically got on top of us, and we struggled. But yeah, once again, we just played some champagne footy that game. Like, hats off to the coaches for that week. They came up with these. I don't know if people remember. Like, I remember this vividly. We had a few plays where we'd like hit up in the midfield, go around the corner to a forward pod who'd like, usually if you're throwing the ball out to the backs, you're kind of attacking the same edge. And we would like, we had a few plays where like we'd realise that they'd extract hard to the other edge. So we'd like pull the ball out the back, but switch directions and hit a crossfield kick into the opposite corner, which is just like, it's kind of like playground stuff that you do in like age grade rugby. But we just like, we did one in the first half. I remember Paddy got the ball out the back from someone on a sword out the back, and then he crossfield kicked to Lucio or Stokesy, and they scored. And I was just like, wow, we are playing some sick rugby. And then we did it again in the second half, a very similar move. It was a different sort of mechanism start up, but the same sort of concept where we try and get them to extract and fold really hard. And then we play out the back of the forwards, acting like we're going to attack the far edge, and then Paddy kind of switches it back and crossfield kicks the other corner. And we did it again, and then Stokesy scored that one. And it was just like, that was another one of those games where I was like, wow, from like coaches, at the start of the week, coaches giving us a plan, teaching us, like, installing the moves, having a good field sessions during the week, to then just like executing perfectly. That was like just like the ideal sort of from Monday through to Saturday afternoon. Just like perfect execution from coaching staff, S&C, preparation, the boys, like it's just everything sort of came together. So that's probably the best team performance as like an organisation I reckon I've been a part of. Because yeah, that was another one of those games where I was like, wow, we're actually really good this year. There's been a few games this year where I was like, wow, like we're actually, the fruits of all this hard work through the championship and all this sort of stuff is starting to, you know, show real dividends. Because yeah, we were just clicking at some points, and yeah, that was a hell of a performance. Next question. What is the next step in my career? Am I retiring? Am I going back to Australia? This is asked by a lot of people, where I'm going next, what's going on. Am I retiring? I got a few times. No, I'm definitely not retiring. I'm only 30. I'm not as a spring chicken as I was when I first came here as 22-year-old, 23-year-old. But like, I've been very fortunate in my career. I don't know whether it's luck or genetics or something, but like, I'm going to touch all the wood in the room I got right now. I'll touch everything. I've never had a surgery. I've never had like a major real injury. I've just been able to play a lot. And some say availability is the best ability, and if that's the case, then I'm up there with the best of them. So yeah, I think I ended up before this obviously went down. I've on like 160 something caps for Irish in 7 years, so I'm averaging like 25 plus games or 20, 25 games a season. So I'm definitely not retiring. My body I still feel good. I'm still fit. I'm still definitely got another 6, 7, who knows. Playing with Gussie, I've maybe got another 10 years in me. I've played with Petrus, Duplessis and Gussie now, who are pretty much 40 and still doing their thing. So there's hope for me to go on for quite a long time. As of what's next in my career, don't know. We got made redundant last week. Obviously having conversations and stuff, but as I said, the market is very tough right now. And when/if I hope that it will happen. I hope this isn't the end for me. But yeah, when something is sorted out for me, I'll let that be announced through the right channels and stuff. I'm not going to go on here and spill the beans, unfortunately. So who knows? I may have signed something already, or maybe I haven't, but I'm not going to spill the beans. That will be done through the right channels with the right people. But yeah, I'm definitely not retiring. I've got a lot of footy left in me. I still love it. I've still got a real passion to achieve things. Now I've played for the Wallabies, I've achieved my ultimate goal of playing internationally, but I've got a lot of other things that I want to do in my career. Like I haven't really won anything professionally yet. So that would be pretty fun if I could be in a position to do that. I really, really would have loved to have done that with London Irish. And I think sad thing is there was a genuine possibility of us being able to do something in the next couple of years. But we'll just never know, unfortunately, which is very sad. But yeah, I've still got a lot I want to achieve and a lot of ambition to keep playing for as long as I can, and keep this thing ticking over. It'll be weird not doing it in a London Irish shirt, but is out of my control. So wherever I go next, I'm gonna go hard and hopefully give them as much effort as I did London Irish and play with the same passion. That's what I'm hoping. I get as much fulfillment out of it as I did playing for Irish because I love that. I loved it a lot. So what I'm doing next, I don't know. And when I do know, I'll let it be announced by proper channels. So, yeah, that's that. Next will be interesting if you think the current rugby model in England is sustainable. And that is from a few people, notably Rizlagram, Cameron Pike 11, and Neil Roberts. Rizlagram is one of my best mates from school back in the day, and this is the first time he's ever actually asked a serious question in his life. So, thanks for the support, Rory, and the proper question. The current state of English rugby is sustainable. I mean, obviously, there's something going wrong. We've lost 3 teams in 3 years, and it's and I'm obviously a byproduct of one of those losses, and along with me and a lot of other people. So obviously something is not working ideally. For me, I think there needs to be more personality in rugby as a brand, individually, as players, as just an entity. I feel like, which I'm sure a lot of people would as well, it's very archaic in the way it goes about things in terms of promotion and what players are allowed to say and do and what is vilified. And I understand it's a game deeply embedded in tradition. But like, I remember I was doing a player appearance for one of my me and my wife's friend. His wife works as a primary school teacher, and she asked me to go in and just do some rugby with the kids and that sort of stuff. And I was at this school, and these kids didn't know anything. I think, where was the school? The school was in Feltham or Hounslow, somewhere around southwest London. And these kids just knew nothing about rugby. Obviously, there's very football orientated place, and like I did a little Q&A with them before. Answer some questions about, because they had this module, I think, on like goal setting and achieving goals. So she wanted to bring me in to teach the kids and try and inspire them to set goals and obviously work hard and achieve their dreams. And then we went out and played some like tag rugby with them. And the first thing these kids were asking me about, like, it was like, oh, what's like rugby celebrations? What do the people do? What does this player do? What does that player do? Like, what are the celebrations I want to do? And they were doing all these football players like signature celebrations and all this sort of stuff, which is obviously very Americanized, or however you want to put it. But at the end of the day, that's the stuff that works, and that's the stuff that brings young people, it attracts them to the game nowadays. And like, if rugby players score a try and do too much celebration, they're just like vilified straight away. If they go and try and self-promote themselves, like even as a player, like doing something like this, talking to a camera or whatever, it's great for self-promotion, but it also comes like, I know the sort of environment rugby's in, and I'm worried about doing this and like people making fun of me and that sort of stuff. And that's just the nature of rugby at the moment. It kind of like, if you show a bit too much personality, or you show a bit more than just, team man, I scored, awesome, let's go, best for the team sort of thing, and giving these kind of cookie cutter answers in interviews and that sort of stuff, I feel like it's pretty vilified. And that's, I think, holding back rugby from promoting itself to a broader audience and a younger audience, which is ideally what we want, to be able to bring people into the sport and get them engaged, because it's such an entertaining, awesome product. There's nothing wrong with the product in the UK or rugby in general. Like, the games of the Premiership are awesome. It's such a good quality. There's some amazing players flying about. They play a great brand of footy, but I do not think it's marketed well enough. And I don't think they're doing enough to encourage players to be able to market themselves and therefore vicariously market the sport, especially to younger audiences, because that's where you need to tap into. Like, you look at football, you look at the American sports, NBA, all that sort of things. Like, it's got a really big draw to the younger audiences because they think the players are cool and that's something that they want to emulate, and it's fun and exciting. And I don't think British rugby is nailing that right now. I don't think many rugby leagues are nailing that right now. Maybe France or places like that, but I don't think rugby in general is nailing that right now. And it's something that it probably needs to adapt pretty quick. Because, I understand that rugby also has its limitations due to its complexity. It's not like football or basketball or something where kids can just go grab a ball and all they need is a hoop or 2 pairs of shoes. They can go to the park and, just play a game of football or go shoot some hoops or whatever. You're not really going to get your mates down to Richmond Green after work and beat the crap out of each other and scrum and stuff. But there's still a way to get it appealing to more mass people, because the product is fantastic to watch. It's gladiatorial. It's amazing to watch. So I'd say it's more marketing than anything that is going to hopefully bring more money into the sport and therefore make it more sustainable. Sean Doyle has asked me, what will you miss about the fans? Ooh. What won't I miss? Honestly, I know every team says this about their fans: best fans in the world. And I've only been, obviously I haven't experienced any other team in the Premiership's fan base because I've only played for Irish, but yeah, I would struggle to find a more loyal and supportive fan base than what we had at London Irish. It is a club like deeply rooted in history. Like, we were about to play our 125th year, and I think there's so many fans that have been with us for so long, and even in my 7-year tenure, they've followed us across the width and breadth of the country, whatever competition we're in, whether we're playing my first season in the Championship, follow us from Rotherham down to Penzance, or even in the BNI Cup, which isn't even a thing, used to be. They followed us to one of my first games for Irish was in the BNI Cup, playing Ospreys A in Neath in South Wales, and it was literally like playing on a mud pitch, and I reckon there was like 100 people there max, and 80 of them were travelling Irish supporters. Like, stuff like that and it was pissing down with rain, and it's like, it's gross, gritty, horrible rugby that is like not very pleasant to play in or watch, I imagine. But we just had this like loyal group of people that would just follow us everywhere. That's the thing. They followed us from Neath to bloody Cape Town this year, playing in the Champions Cup. Like, through the ups and downs, there's always been this core group of fans that have been so loyal. And then we were just building this amazing, like, the atmosphere at Brentford over the last, especially this season, was just so awesome to play in front of. It was so fun. And I felt like every week after we win or lose, I'd walk around the stadium and thank the fans, and there'd always be new faces, and then those new faces would be there again the next game, and there'd be more new faces, and I felt it was just like building this really awesome core group of people with the rugby we were playing and the show that got put on at Brentford and the locale and all that sort of stuff. I'm really going to miss everything about the fans, the loyalty and the love they've shown me, and the appreciation they've shown me throughout this, like, even the last week. The amount of support and amazing messages I've got from fans is just unreal. I kind of got into it a bit deeper in the other pod that might be coming out. But yeah, just the amount of support I've received and how the fans have reached out to me and told me how I've either affected their lives positively in any sort of way. It's really humbling. I'm just a I'm just a bloke who plays footy and plays rugby for a living. Like, I'm very normal. None of us really, apart from the upper echelon of rugby players, which I'm not a part of, are like celebs or have any sort of like notoriety or fame or whatever. Like, I've got a couple of thousand followers on Instagram. That's about it. Like, I'm nothing too special. But I just tried to go out and play with a sort of love and a passion for London Irish that I know that all these fans had. And for people to be kind of a consistent message that people saw and appreciated means so much to me. And it meant so much to me over the last week or so, because it's been such a difficult time. But I've just had such lovely messages from all the fans talking about how they appreciated my sort of commitment and passion and loyalty to the team, which is something that I really pride myself on as a man. I always just wanted to go out and play with pride and passion, and I thought, and for that to be recognised and acknowledged by the fans, I think is just like, it meant a lot to me. Yeah. Next up, this is from Alan Beaumont, 1966. Why have you been so loyal to Irish when others were moving on? Love your loyalty, by the way. All the best. Thank you, Alan. Similar question from Rugby London Irish on Twitter. What provided you with the inspiration to constantly improve your game? And why did you want to do this at Irish? We're so glad you did. We're interesting to know why. So I've got like, I think I've said this in a few interviews over the years. Like, I've got a pretty like emotional connection to London Irish, and I think you can see that in the way that in the way I go about things and celebrate, or I kind of just like ride the emotional roller coaster with the club and the fans. So when I came over to Irish initially, I was kind of in a bit of a bad place in mentally. With I'd played for the Western Force for a couple of years, and that was my like childhood club. I've been in the academy since I was 14, and I managed to debut for them pretty early as a tight end. Like, I played when I was 20, so I was playing Super Rugby when I was 20, and like, if you asked me at that point in my career, I thought I was invincible. Like, I literally was like, I am going to be the best player in the world. I'm going to play for the Wallabies soon. I'm going to have 100 caps. I'm going to be the best player ever. And I kind of hit Super Rugby and just like stagnated and realised like, oh, I'm not as good as I thought I was. Around the park was sweet, but I was just like, I was a newly converted sort of tight end. I played number 8 most of my like teenage years and moved to tight end eventually. But scrumming at Perth club level compared to Super Rugby was just like, oh my lord, this is a massive jump. And I struggled with the transition massively. I was fit and I was good around the park and I could play like a back row playing tight end, but when it came to set piece, I was just not really not too up to it, to be honest. And I kind of plateaued for another couple of years, and the coach kept picking me off the bench. I think I played 26 Super games in my first 2 years with the Force, and every single one of them was off the bench. Like, I didn't start a single game for 2 years. Which I understand now, looking back, and I wasn't ready set piece wise, and he obviously was like giving me shots to improve and stuff. And then in my third year at the Force, I guess my scrum wasn't improving the way he wanted me to, and he didn't pick me for the whole season. And I kind of fell out of favour, and pretty much got told that they weren't going to keep me on. And that was a real big body blow for me. Because obviously it's a club that I grew up and loved. Like, I was like a fan of the Force before I was involved with them. I was the kid who was at every game. I had jerseys of players hanging up. I was one of those like super fanboys, and to go from being a fanboy to being in the academy to actually playing with guys that I'd watched play for them for years and years and years, I was just like, yeah, I was just like this, and I was like, this is just going to be a linear trajectory of my career. Go really well at schoolboy level, go really well at club level, go fast track into the Super Rugby. I'm just going to fly and play for the Wallabies a million times, and everything's going to be smooth sailing. And then this hit me for 6 a bit, and I was, so then I came to Irish, and they kind of stuck with me when I was struggling initially coming over here. It's a big learning curve coming to the UK from Super Rugby, especially being a young tight head. Like, set piece wise, again, I thought Super was hard. When I was coming over here, I remember my first scrummaging session at London Irish. Like, I did not know what hit me. We were doing these long isometric scrum holds, like 30 to 45 second scrums, and I remember like just coming out of them and being like wobbly legged, seeing like the blackness coming in, and pretty much almost passing out and just getting popped out the top in scrums and probably not and it was just like a baptism of fire massively. And then that first season, the champ, once again, I was kind of in and out of the team. I was second choice to start off with, and then I was like out for a bit, and then I'd come back in, and like had a few games where towards the end of the season, I kind of finally felt like I figured out scrums, but I was so far off it. And then I was like, I just got to figure it out. And then we went to the premiership once again. I was like, oh damn, this is even harder. And I wasn't ready set piece wise then. And even though like realistically, if I'm looking back when it came to that, I wasn't up to it. They saw something in me, and Irish stuck with me, and they gave me another 2-year deal and gave me time to hone my craft and sort of, be a part of this. Towards the end of my second season in the premiership, I managed to become sort of like a first choice tight head, and I was starting, and my scrums were coming around, and I was figuring stuff out. And then they stuck with me, and we went through the championship again and then back up, and then they gave me another contract, and I was like, wow, these guys like really believe in me. And every time I spoke to them, they're like, yeah, you're an integral part of this squad, we believe in you, and that sort of stuff. And that just made me obviously love them even more, because I loved the loyalty they showed me, so I felt obliged to show the same back. And yeah, I just felt like I owed it to them to always try and improve and work and play with passion and love, because I felt a real strong bond with the club, and I felt like the club sort of reciprocated that in the way they treated me and the way they stuck by me, when I thought probably in the first couple of years they probably had every right to be like, I don't know if this guy's going to progress to become a consistently good tight end in the premiership. And I had my own doubts about that, and they stuck with me and molded me into that, into someone who can start in the premiership and be comfortable saying that I feel very confident against anybody, and I thought I played some really good rugby over the last thing, and sort of repaid that faith that they had in me. And yeah, it's just sad that this has happened. I had 2 more years on my deal. Looking forward to going for 9 years at Irish and hopefully racking up 200 plus caps and that sort of stuff, but it's not to be, unfortunately. Yeah, I just felt Irish showed loyalty to me, so I always wanted to show loyalty back and passion and love, because I grew up they took me on when I was struggling a bit and gave me direction and showed me love and loyalty, and I felt like I had to do the same back. Best player to play with and against. I played with a lot of very, very good players at Irish, like a lot. It's hard to pinpoint the best. So I don't know if I can pinpoint one name when it comes to that. People I've loved playing with a lot. I love playing with Dave Parecki when he was at Irish. He's now back in Australia playing for the Wallabies, but David was one of those guys who just threw himself into everything. Probably why I was injured so much, but yeah, he just you knew when you were playing with Dave, he was going to run head first through a wall for you guys. It was a great man, great scrummager. He helped me a lot. And he was one of those guys that you just always knew what you were going to get from him. Similar veins was Connor Gilsonen. Gilly, he'd probably be the first to admit, he built his game on just going harder than everybody. And he's similar. Guys that you can rely on, that they're going to be there mentally and physically every single game. You forgive skill errors and that sort of stuff, but those boys who are just always rocked up and I'm going as hard as I can, they're the guys that you love playing with. In my first couple of years playing with guys like David Pace, he was really big for my sort of development. He was obviously an Irish legend. He'd played internationally, all that sort of stuff, but he really believed in me as well and helped me a lot with my scrums initially, especially when that second year I was with Irish and sort of pushed my way into becoming a premiership starter. He was massive for me, and I really liked bouncing stuff off him. He actually reached out to me over the last week. I haven't heard from Pacey for a bit, just checking in on me and stuff. He's a great man. So yeah, Pacey was really good. Parecki, Loved obviously playing with Gussie Creevy. It's all the hookers obviously because they're the guys that helped me scrum next to. Gussie has been amazing. Such an amazing human. Not just as a rugby player, obviously his rugby speaks for himself, but such an amazing bloke. And for someone who is probably in that upper echelon of rugby players in terms of notoriety and fame and that sort of stuff, the most humble, relaxed, down-to-earth bloke you'll ever meet. Gussie was just such a pleasure to play with. I'm probably missing out so many guys, but I'm obviously been rambling for a while now. But yeah, and someone I played against, this is actually quite a funny story. I remember my second year of Super Rugby back with the Force, we were playing the Crusaders in Christchurch, and I'll never ever forget this game. I came off the bench, and we were actually going alright against the Crusaders, I think, and we had a series of scrums 5 minutes from my line when we had one of our second rowers yellow carded, literally like any tight head's worst nightmare, especially a young 21-year-old tight head who wasn't very confident in my scrums against the Crusaders, who are obviously one of the best teams in the world. And I was scrumming against Wyatt Crockett. He's played for the All Blacks a bunch of times, and I'm just this like bright-eyed young 21-year-old. And their front row was like Wyatt Crockett, Corey Flynn, and Owen Franks. And the front row we had on at the Force was Francois Van Wyk, who plays for Leicester now, but Slucky it was like his third Super Rugby game. It was about my 10th Super Rugby game. And then we had, I can't remember who was at hooker, maybe Heath Tessman, who was a bit more of a wily veteran. But me and Slucky were like very young, inexperienced props, and we were against literally like guys, all three of them had like 100 All Blacks caps, and we were missing a second rower, and we had a flanker in behind me in moulded sole boots. And I just never forget, they got like first scrum pen, popped me out the top, reset, we'll go another scrum, almost pushed us over the line, got a penalty try, another scrum, and then the third one, like White Crocker got under me and he literally lifted me off the floor, and as he was doing it, he was like, "Take your medicine, boy." I'll never forget it. He was like laughing at me and like getting under my chest and popping me up as he's pushing us over for a penalty try, and he was like, "Take your medicine, boy." And I was just like, ooh, yeah. Yeah, I will take that. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the lesson. And yeah, I will never forget that. That was one of those, I came off that pitch feeling about this big at the time, and I was like ready to just quit. I was like, I'm just not getting the scrummaging thing. But any older sort of professional title will tell you that there's always been games when you get absolutely and that's just the way it is. Even now, when I feel like I figured stuff out and I have a run of scrummaging well, I'll just like go up against someone and I'm just like, I just can't figure this person out, and you just think that you're the worst scrummager ever, and then you put things in perspective and realize that sometimes it's a part of being a scrummager. Sometimes you get done and sometimes you don't. And yeah, I'll never forget Wyatt Crockett telling me to take my medicine when I was a young, bright-eyed boy. Yeah, that was something else. I'll try and figure out one more question here, and then I'll probably wrap this up because there's a lot of questions, and this is probably going on for way too long. This one is from James Neal, but there was a few people who asked who's like the best and worst trainer. I know exactly who is the worst trainer, but probably one of the best players I've ever played with is BV, Bernard Janzi van Redsburg. That man, if you ever seen it's like yin and yang. When he trains, he is just chilling. Like, I've seen him walk around the gym and just like do absolutely nothing in the gym. At training, he just like does what he needs to do, gets the stuff done. Like, he's not lighting up training sessions whatsoever. And then he just like rolls out on a Saturday and he's melting blokes left, right, and centre, making line breaks, chopping guys in half. Like, you all know BV, he unbelievable player. And the contrast between his training form and the way he plays is just ludicrous. And it's always like, I'm a rugby player, not a rugby trainer. And I get that. Initially I was like, who is this bloke when he first rocked up? Because he was just like chilling at training. And then he played a few games. I was like, oh my lord, you, sir, are very, very good. So yeah, BV is definitely probably the worst trainer, but one of the best players I've ever played with. And the best trainer, there's a few guys who are just like wired the complete opposite. If they're training or they're playing, they're going a million miles every time. I already mentioned Connor Gilson was like that. Like, if we're doing a walkthrough or we're playing in a European knockout game, he is like full intensity, strapped up, ready to go. If it's a walkthrough, he's still going to like smack you at the breakdown, all that sort of stuff. Gilly was like that, which was great because it kind of raised the level. In the time, you're like, oh, it's so annoying to train against. But it can also sort of push the intensity of training. When there's some days when boys aren't feeling it, Gilly's always out there going, screaming, wilding, running around, smacking things. And Tom Pearson's similar to that. He's like, when he's on, he's on. And he shows that in the way he plays. He goes a million miles. Same sort of thing. We're doing like running plays against each other where it's meant to be just like, we're not beating the crap out of each other every session. When we run in our plays, it's like chest on, grab, go to deck sort of thing. Whereas if you run at TP there, he's coming in, chopping you, picking you up, smacking you. There's so many times I've run a line and just like slowed myself into contact and TP just comes and like takes your ribs out. And you're like, oh, you almost want to get mad at him, but then you realise that he does that to everybody on the weekend. So you're like, okay, if he needs to do this in order to smoke guys on the weekend, I'll be your tackle dummy, TP. So yeah, TP and Gilly were like, was something else. Very, very good. Okay, I'm probably going to wrap it up here. I have so many other questions. So if you guys enjoyed this and want me to go through a bunch of other questions and stuff, I can probably compile another bloody 10 of them. But I thought this is like a good way to start things off. And as I said, this is technically part 2, but I think it's going to come out it is going to come out before part 1. I just need to get some stuff checked off around that. So hopefully that all gets ticked off and I can release that. But for now, I think that this is a bit safer way to start so I don't potentially piss anybody off, especially when I'm unemployed and looking for a job. So yeah, thanks guys. I know it's been going on for almost 50 minutes now, but yeah, thank you for the support and the questions and all that sort of stuff. So if you enjoyed this and want more of a Q&A sort of thing, please I can just let me know, and I will get to it. I've got so many more questions here. I can put up another poll and people can ask even other questions if they want. But yeah, I mean, while I'm not training or not going anywhere, I mean, I've got some spare time, so if you want me to do more of these, I can churn them out. But yeah, thank you guys for listening, watching, wherever you are. Appreciate you all. And yeah, hopefully I'll chat to you again soon. Cheers. Bye.